we've got Fran here from Head Nooks. Is that how you pronounce it?
Head Nooks.
Head Nooks.
Yeah.
If people don't know that, it's a TikTok channel that talks all things ADHD. I mean, everything. I've learned so much. We're going to get into that, but we've had two. I don't know if you've listened to them, but the last two episodes have been quite heavy, quite traumatic. So we're going to do your story, and then we're going to talk positive sides of ADHD, negatives. Then I want to learn from you because I know you've done more trialing with medication, shroomy woomies.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's going to be a bit more upbeat. But childhood for you, in terms of your upbringing.
Yeah.
Were you diagnosed with ADHD late or early?
Oh, late. 3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Is when I got diagnosed. So,
when you look back, though.
Oh God, absolutely riddled with it. And I've always questioned that there was something different about me, and I could never figure it out. And to a certain extent, when I was at private school from 7 all the way up to 18, and when I was at my first prep school, it was raised by, I think, one of the other parents that they couldn't figure out why I wasn't doing the results or getting the results, because I was so quite switched on and quite smart about things, but obviously that never transpired into my results.
Did you find that something that my mum and dad said to me? Now, obviously, this is now that we've been diagnosed and we chat about it. They were like, "You were so good with talking to other adults."
Yeah.
So, like, you were quite mature in conversation.
Yeah.
And then you look at you taking a geography exam. It was like, "Where's she gone?"
Yeah, exactly the same. But I grew up in that kind of household where there was a lot of adults around all the time. There was a lot of dinner parties, and
Same.
So I was always the wine waiter or whatever it might be. And you tend to be able to have or hold a conversation on a higher level from a younger age if you've been brought up in that kind of household. And that obviously transpired quite well because I've always been able to communicate incredibly well, and I'd always pick things up, not from reading a book. I've always struggled to do that. I got tested for dyslexia because they thought potentially that could be why I'm not producing the results in school, but it wasn't, and I wasn't dyslexic.
Gets misdiagnosed that quite a lot, doesn't it?
It does, but my brother was.
Yeah.
So, obviously ran in the family, but at the time ADHD wasn't a thing, so we're talking back in 1991, probably when I got tested for it. For dyslexia, and obviously because I wasn't, it was like, well, it's just I'm fine.
Yeah.
So now looking back, if we'd known more about ADHD back then, 100% I would have been diagnosed and things might have been different. But for me, it was the case of having to figure things out myself or learn. I always class it as learning the hard way, and it's a lot of it by trial and error. And I just had to get through what I had to get through and do well at what I was good at. And then obviously just accept the things that I wasn't very good at.
Because you were good at sport, weren't you?
Yeah.
And I suppose that's quite, well, it's active, isn't it? So your brain is...
That was for me, that was the way of expressing. Yeah, it was an outlet and expressing who I was. I was talented at all sports, really, that I put my mind to, whether rugby was the main one at the time, rugby, then cricket, then golf. But I used to play rugby, cricket, golf, hockey, everything.
Cricket and golf.
Yeah.
Just can't get on board with them.
Oh, come on.
My dad was a pro golfer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My brother was.
And my mum was pregnant with me, and he went away to his last tournament, and she went, "I'm not being funny, James. If you don't come back with some money, it's going to be the end." And then he had to go into business. But funnily enough, he said to me that is a place, right, where men...
So much business takes place.
Business, but you talk.
Yeah.
There's something about a golf course.
Yeah.
I suppose because it's so fucking slow.
Well, it's slow. I mean, you've got anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5, 5 hours, one-to-one with somebody. And you get to know somebody's character.
And you're competing with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I remember growing up, right, my dad comes home in a good mood. He's had a good round of golf.
Exactly,
Bad mood. Don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's a mental game. And I think, if you're a competitive person within yourself, I'd rather watch paint dry if I'm honest. But and when we come, because it's always on the TV in my family home. My brother loves golf as well.
Yeah.
But there must be something in it because
when you start playing at a younger age, it's all about the love for the game, the competition, learning how to play, learning to play with better people. And then as you get older, and obviously drugs start coming into your social life, and drinks start coming into your social life, they transfer into the game as well.
And it's a way to leave your wife.
Well, you get peace and quiet. You get absolute peace and quiet. You're not get bothered. There's the ongoing joke online that golf lasts 8 hours, 10 hours, and you get men just say, absolutely, that's so true. It's bollocks. A round of golf, I should probably say this now, but a round of golf is 4 hours, 5 hours max, absolutely max. But if you take into the breakfast beforehand, a couple of pints beforehand, 3 or 4 pints
whether
afterwards.
Whether you've taken the buggy or you're walking.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. Oh, you've got to take a buggy nowadays, because that's the best way. But yeah, it's a great place to be. I mean,
one thing I do know is that I'll never go out with a man who plays golf, right? Because I just know. I know what's going on there. And you won't be able to fool me telling me it's a 10-hour game.
What I appreciate now, more than anything, is actually spending time with friends, taking the piss out of each other, having a really good time. And that's the closest thing I can get now to going to the pub, which obviously I've removed myself from completely.
Yeah, so let's, because I feel like I've read that by getting into this world of golf. But back to childhood. So, managed to get through kind of like school just about?
Terrible at exams. So I can still remember lessons clear as day if the teacher got that message across to me in a certain way. So if the teacher was very engaging and not necessarily understood me, but if they just had a way of teaching, because I think it's a bit of a calling to be a proper teacher, if they had a way of getting that lesson across or that subject across, I'll remember it forever.
Yeah, and you're like, you're in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they've got it through to me in such a fashion, whereas others, whether they just be putting it up on the blackboard back then, or the overhead projector, and they just expect you to try and learn it, that was never going to work for me. And they're the ones I really struggled with.
And what about friends and things like that?
So I was quite popular because I played sports. So I was always in the first team.
Running thing that, isn't it, at school?
And if you're in that kind of clique or whatever you want to call it, you're always going to be okay with friends. I always felt I was never overly close with friends. I was always part of a group, if you know what I mean. So I never really had somebody that I could ever open up to or talk to about things. But at the time, I never realised that I needed to.
Yeah.
Looking back now, I wish I'd had that ability to speak and to be a bit more open. But at the time, you're just growing up and life is just life. You just kind of, it is what it is.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you only start thinking about it. You don't think about that at the time. It's only when you get older that you look back and you're like, I probably could have done with that.
Yeah, 100%. And like I mentioned before, about when you're at school, it's not really encouraged to speak out to other people about your issues. You just deal with your own stuff yourself.
And I think at the time we don't even know that we're doing that. It's that compartmentalising and survival mode because
you just help it.
Yeah, you wouldn't know any different. I think it's different for girls. I mean, and I talk about this a lot with, especially, I know we will go into it in more depth, but men with the drug cocaine, because from the guy friends who I've had, the common thing that they've all said to me is that as men, that drug, when it became so popular and on the scene in their friendship groups, it allowed them to sit and open up and talk about things that they would never do. But the problem is that then we don't talk about them again until we're on the next session.
Well, yeah. And then you literally repeat what you said a few nights before.
Yeah, but I think you end up sessioning with the same people. Like, I've heard this before.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to listen.
But exactly. And I'm going to tell you all my things I've told you 500 times.
Exactly.
But I think with girls growing up, it is different. Like, girls will talk, they have their best friend and they talk to each other. Whereas guys, you tend to be more in a group, like
guys are closed.
Yeah.
Closed books.
Yeah.
It takes, I dare say, to be brave to open up because your general mindset to be a bloke is you've got to be strong, you've got to be big, you've got to be, you can't be seen to be weak and vulnerable. And that's somehow instilled in us from a very young age. And it's only, I'd say, over the last 15 years when men's mental health became a bit more apparent and a bit more spoken about, when blokes have started to open up. I mean, can you imagine if there were a bloke on if TikTok was a thing back then, talking about these kind of things, they'd be like shut down and you'd just be laughed off the face of the earth, really.
I have a real interest in men and men's mental health, because I feel like we're at a stage at the moment where women are quite powerful in how they're speaking. And this kind of all men thing, which I find, for me, is very difficult for men who I feel like they maybe don't know their purpose in the world right now, because, what does a woman now need from a man? And actually, they've lost that role of what it was back then, of provider, money earner, protector, because women are starting to figure out that they can kind of do those things for themselves. But with that, there's a connotation of we don't need men. And I think it's a bit scary, this like woman versus man thing, because we should be working together, because we do make pretty good teams.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's finding somebody that you can work in a team with. I'm all for women, in the workplace being successful. Women are a lot better than men at a lot of things, and that's fact. That's why there's a massive growth in the woman's voice and everything from that perspective. However, when it comes to relationships, that then breeds a lot of resentment and a lot of issues, because exactly what you've said, the mentality's changed from both men and women, from basically thinking, well, what do we need from a man? But to make or to find a relationship, or to be in a loving relationship, or have children, or get married, you've now got to find somebody who's going to be your number one fan, and vice versa for each other. You've got to support each other no matter what they're doing. And when they're down, you've got to pick them back up. And I think that's one of the things now that doesn't seem to take place anymore. And that's why you see relationships being cut short. That's why you see marriages only lasting, they used to average 12, 14 years. Now they're getting cut shorter and shorter, because it's a different world.
I think
now.
It's an expectation for this perfect partner, and actually you've got to accept that that's not a thing. And are you willing to sit down and have these, that's the important thing with it. Since going into recovery, my belief back in men has been rejuvenated, because I sit in those meetings and I see them trying to be better. But as a woman, we have to allow men to work themselves out. And some women go, well, it's not my job to do that. And I don't want to play the mother role. It's like we've got a really crossed situation going on, of like, not everyone is Harvey Weinstein.
On the flip side, they want, or a woman will want the man to be their rock, and men need a rock as well. They need the exact same, and probably a lot more now than they ever have. And I think, but just to touch on what you mentioned about this perfect life, my opinion that since the growth of social media and things like that, everyone's portraying this perfect life. All you see, this is one of the reasons why I came off Facebook and Instagram, because you see all these couples showing off, oh, look at me, we're here, we're there. Your fella's cheating on you, you've been playing away, but on the face of it, you're showing pure perfection, when the reality is complete bollocks.
Yeah, but men are, they get to window shop with things like Instagram, I would say. Of course, men didn't get that back in the day. But it's temptation. There's a huge amount of temptation for women as well. But we've seemed to have lost respect for each other, right? 100%. In the rounds of, the parameters over what each sex classes as cheating or classes as respectable to the other person. The amount of relationships I've been in where I don't find it comfortable if my partner is liking images or pictures of another female in a provocative sense, and being conditioned to then think that, being kind of gaslit into thinking you've got a problem, it's your insecurities. It's like, no, that's actually just a boundary that I have, that I don't want to do that to you and make you feel the way that makes me feel. So why would you want to do the same thing?
No, I get that. I've got a pal of mine that's been through a similar situation because he's subscribed to an OnlyFans page, and that came out, and she classed it as cheating. He doesn't class it as cheating, and he's coming for an opinion, and I'm like, well, it's a very fine
when
line.
That happens though, and you're the person who it's happened to, it does make you feel like, well, it's me versus that, and you're choosing to back that up, like you're kind of having your opinion to protect that over me, your spouse. It's tricky. But this is why you have to find someone who has the same values as you.
100%.
And that's key to all of it.
Or be open enough to have this conversation.
Yeah.
That's the truth of the matter. If you're going into relationships where you're keeping things from people from the start, you're up against it straight away.
Yeah, things always come out, don't they?
And I think in recovery or in sobriety or being on this journey of self-discovery or whatever you want to call it, you learn a lot more about yourself then than you have done before. So you can look back and think, oh yeah, that makes sense. But now, going into a relationship or the thought of going into a relationship, I'll be like, well, this is who I am. So it's not saying I subscribe to OnlyFans because I don't, but this is what I'm about.
First date, just to let you know.
Yeah, just to let me know. A real issue with this. Hope you're okay with that.
As long as you're open-minded, everything's going to be fine. I think when you start discovering yourself, I mean, I didn't even know what a boundary was. So I now, for the first time, would have, a bit more of a criteria than before. I would just, if I liked somebody and I got on well with them, that'd be enough.
Yeah.
But then I suppose everyone I've met has been through drinking drugs.
But I think now what you'll find is I don't know what your relationship status is. I know
single.
Same for me, and it's one of them where my guard's incredible. My walls are really high up at the moment because, one, I don't want to fall into a toxic relationship again. Two, I know where that relationship took me mentally, and I'm still, if I'm honest about it, I've not dealt with it, and this is 3 years, just over 2 years on.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time to get through that process, and then to be on that journey of self-discovery, to understand what you actually want out of life, whether you do want another partner at all.
Yeah.
And that's, it's a hard process to go through.
I think when you haven't, I don't know about you, obviously you were with someone for 11 years, so that's quite a long time. Yeah. Through going on the journey of self-discovery, I've realised I've never been in a healthy, I've never experienced one. So, and also the thought of one, I think, slightly terrifies me because the men I've been with, my role has been an emotional one, like look after you in an emotional sense. And if I had someone who was emotionally secure or mature or at least on the path with that, I'm like, what would they need me for? And actually, just have a good time and like be in a partnership. But I think there's a lot to be said for enjoying being on your own and that being okay.
It's definitely, I agree, but it's hard. It's really difficult. It's lonely. And, there's times when you just think, God, I wish I was just, had somebody there and had somebody that actually understands what you're going through or what you've been through and what you're working through on a daily basis. Because some days you wake up and you just do not want to function.
No.
And then you don't want somebody niggling at you saying, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Well, fuck off. I'm trying to actually just stay alive for today. Thank you. And that's a hard process to work through for yourself to say, well, that's actually okay. You're going to have days like this, whether it's sobriety, whether it's ADHD.
You got through school, you left school.
Yep.
And then, like job-wise, how were things? And sort of, if we just do your story for a bit.
Yeah. So after I'd done A-levels, there was no chance I wanted to go to uni. Never appealed to me. Even when I was I think this you have to do your UCAS points and all that kind of thing for when you're
right.
level 6.
That's why do they make that so difficult?
Well, I never even did it. So I'd made my mind up at 16 that I wasn't going to uni anymore.
Yeah.
And one, for the admin side of things,
yeah,
it's just never been my forte.
No.
And
forms,
just can't
ADHD tax.
Yeah.
If I had to add that up, horrifying. Things like gov.uk, that I am convinced is a ploy for people. Like they make it difficult.
Yeah, of course.
Can I ever remember my password? No. My something number? No. Have I put the paperwork anywhere? No. My mum had to get boxes for me. Yeah, I had to have that.
I had piles everywhere.
I do that. Organised piles.
Yeah.
They're organised to me.
But yeah, then they just disappear into a mess, or they get burnt or something after a few years.
Yeah, Apple ID, that's another one.
Yeah, I'm terrible with it. It's horrendous. But yeah, after school, I was quite good at rugby, and I went. I was playing for like the under-19s, under-21s for like a Premiership rugby team, and that kind of was what I thought I wanted to do, and I was quite. So from the age of like 15, I was out drinking at the weekends. So even at private school,
Same.
I come home at the weekends.
Fake ID.
Fake ID back of FHM. And we go around Nottingham and places like that, and Derby, and obviously Chesterfield and Sheffield and things. And it was great fun. But I was obviously still into sports a lot, so we had to train a hell of a lot, and to do that twice a week. And then on the Saturdays, we were playing up and down the country. It became a bit more of a chore. I was going out Tuesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday playing rugby. Sunday, we'd do the Sunday day sesh. No drugs at this point, all alcohol. And then it came to me where I was just like, I can't do this.
So good to choose drinking over everything.
Yeah, pretty much. I then went and signed for another team, and I did the pre-season. I remember turning up to the pre-season, and it was a boiling hot day in July. It was like 30 degrees, and we were running laps, and we were doing all this kind of fitness training. And I was sick as a dog. I literally, and I walked away from it and went, that's me done. I'm done. And then I literally hung up the boots there and then. And much to my dad's disappointment, because he was a big rugby guy. And it was one of them things where I'd fallen out of love with the game. And I think, again, that's an ADHD thing. You do something to the extreme, and then you think you've not mastered it by any stretch of the imagination, but you've got to a level you think, oh, that's all right, okay, I'm bored now, I'll do something else.
Yeah, I have that for sure. Or, I don't know, if someone, you get to a certain level and then you meet someone who gives you some constructive criticism, and you just go, not for me.
Yeah, like,
sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. You can't. But that's, a pathological demand avoidance that is instilled in me. I struggle. But now you look back, though, now you understand ADHD, you can look back and think, well, that actually makes sense why I fell out of love with it.
Yeah.
And why I didn't have, or why I lost, that kind of thrill, because it became a job and didn't become it wasn't a passion anymore.
I think as well, like saying the rugby thing, it's having someone above you, so like a coach telling you what to do. I think this is why a lot of people with ADHD, the ratio to be an entrepreneur, although it's quite tricky because we're kind of quite good at getting it all together, and then then when you have responsibilities, you can't tend to plate spin as well as what you thought you could. But also we start one idea, then we've got another one. It's kind of, I feel like someone with ADHD should be the ideas person, and then you need a partner, like a business partner, to be the implementer.
Yeah, no,
because
100%.
I've had loads of good ideas that I've speak to them about, especially when I'm on a session. So I'm blue in the face. Everyone's saying, it's a fantastic idea. What are you going to do? I don't know. Yeah. No idea. No. I don't know how to code, so therefore I can't make the app, so therefore I can't do it.
Yeah. Exactly the same. And it's so frustrating that you get these ideas, and there'll be ideas that you probably thought about 10 years ago that are still niggling away in the back of your mind, that you are desperate to bring to fruition.
That it's going to get to the day where I'll see it on a Instagram sponsorship, and I'll be like, I fucking had that idea 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was way ahead of the curve then. So that is, again, it's hard looking back. It's hard dealing with that kind of, because you carry that forward, and mentally, I think you chalk it up as a failure because you've not fulfilled your potential, which is something that gets pushed around, and you just think, well, I kind of did the best I could at the time, but obviously now, looking back, yeah.
I hate that thing as well. People say that it's lazy, like with the whole idea thing. And they're like, you got to have some get up and go. You got to go and execute this idea. I'm like, I don't know how to.
Don't know how.
And I just want to hand it over to someone.
Yeah. To hand it over to someone that you employ, you've got to pay for them. You know, if you could find a partner that believed in you, that had
money
or the ability to implement these ideas, well, that's your ticket to stardom, really. But to find that person
with the millionaires,
exactly. So.
Okay, so we left rugby, we hung up the boots.
This
is when you first started drinking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've always been, a social animal.
Do you find like you are very good at sort of like kind of like a chameleon, where you can talk to anyone from any walk of life?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that came from being what we mentioned earlier about being in dinner parties with adults all the time, because you have to put on an older kind of face, if you will, to be able to communicate with adults that are 20, 30 years older than you. You know, so you carry that forward, and that becomes a blessing and a curse in one way, because the blessing is you can now communicate with anybody. So if you go out with anybody, you put a couple of pints down somebody's neck, and with you, it's very few people that I walk away and think, well, I didn't get on with that.
Same.
You know?
Yeah.
We walked away, we got on like a house on fire.
But then when I have time to think about it, I'm like, but who was I in that? Like, who was I?
Completely with masked. And that's the whole thing.
That's like, since getting sober for me, like figuring out who that's been the maddest thing. I think it's important to be kind to yourself when you're doing that, because you some things are like really eye-opening, and you think, fucking hell. Like,
well, if you're not kind to yourself, you literally you beat yourself up.
Yeah. What were relationships like for you then, moving into...
So I was never really in any long-term relationships until my ex of 11 years. So I was in and out of relationships. I was a boy around town, you know, so it was a lot of one-night stands, a lot of friends with benefits, let's say. Because after clubbing, we'd always go back to someone's house, carry on drinking, and it was just, that was the lifestyle.
Do you feel like it was because you never really connected on a deeper level with a woman?
I think at the time I never wanted to.
Yeah.
I quite liked I didn't want to be held back in a way. But deep down I probably did want to find somebody that I could be open with. And I was a very, very closed book with all my emotions, with feelings, you know, for a long, long time. I mean, until a few years ago, really. And it was masking, you know, to the highest level, really, because you just don't want to open up. You don't want to feel vulnerable in front of somebody. And I think that from a male perspective, it's one of the hardest things to do, is to open up to somebody. And then if you get into relationships when you do open up to somebody and then they use it against you,
really hard.
That's really difficult to deal with. And that's something that's why my barriers are so high now, because that's happened to me. And I don't want that I know where that takes you.
Me too. And I think when you come out of it and you realise what it was.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that we're sitting here saying that we're perfect.
But
I have a pattern of abandoning myself in a relationship. So I'm all focus is there on that person, and instead of, you know, it doesn't matter how well I'm doing or how happy I am. I have always been my happiest when I've been single. So I don't know. I think you get a better understanding of who you are and the person you probably should be with when you figure yourself out.
Again, it's something that I've started really looking into recently, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I think when you go on this kind of journey, you can't be with somebody unless you're fully comfortable within your own skin.
And that used to really annoy me when people said that. When I was in active addiction, I used to kind of fight against it. I'd be like, no. Yeah, exactly. And now I am on it. I'm like, absolutely. I think another thing with the ADHD thing and the masking thing is that we attract someone that we, in that moment, that we are that version of ourselves.
Yeah.
So like we're meet somebody and we're in that, I don't know, pissed high state, and you're getting on really well with the opposite sex. You think, oh my God, this is my soulmate. We're going to be together forever.
Yeah.
But then the only premise of that relationship has been that starting
on a party.
Yeah.
The party mentality.
So then I wonder, like, oh, why is the whole relationship just around drugs and drinking? Yeah. And why couldn't we have a open conversation unless we were high? Yeah. It's like, well, because that's where you started.
Exactly. And that's that. You don't realise that at the time. You've not got a clue about it. But then you do when, let's say, you talk about having children and you talk about progressing the relationship more long term, mentalities change. Usually on the woman's front, because they want to think about having a baby and things like that, and men don't think that way straight away. They are big kids, for a long time, and it takes a long time for men to mature, if they ever bloody do. All men are daft as a brush, really, I think, and it does take a long time to get there. They will sit and open up, or they will sit and talk things, but it's all bravado with the man. It's all ego.
One thing I will say is, like, if I've been with people before, okay, and then I've witnessed them for the first time in a group setting with their friends, who am I going out with? Yeah. Like, I've sat and you've cried to me and been vulnerable, and now you're being a dick.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find it funny because, like, I understand, I get it, and we can all show off. Like, I understand that, but like, I'm just like, God. But I also know some of their friends individually,
men need that though. Yeah. Men need to be able to express themselves in some way, shape, or form to get it out of their system, whatever it might be. Whether it's playing sport, having being daft, doing stupid ass things. It's just what men are like, I think. But if you've had them open up to you, that's a different thing.
But only when drugs and alcohol are
involved.
And
that's that does open the barriers. To be honest, it's just all the walls drop down when you get a few grams in.
Yeah. Okay. So on that topic, when did drugs come into your life? Because you were quite late, weren't you?
Yeah. So I was 26, living in London. I just left a job in a state agency down there. So I first moved down to work in Notting Hill in a estate agent, and it was 2005, 2006 kind of time, and things were going well, but that's when the property market started flying, and I was working in estate agents, and I was valuing property and sales, and then the manager went off on paternity, so I then became the interim manager, and it was going really well, but I just bought my first flat down there, and the property market literally boomed within a space of, I don't know, 3 to 6 months. It was crazy. And I then left the job of estate agency because I hated 9 to 5. It was 7 to 10, really, at night, because it never really stopped. And I left that, and I had a load of money in the bank, and I was doing what I wanted to do. But then everybody else is working, so it becomes really boring. So I was I had like this little team of builders that was doing up flats in around Notting Hill. It was great fun, but then I was really bored, so I was waiting for people to finish work, and then obviously that's when all my friends were doing drugs, and I was really against it for a long time. Really, I used to drive down to Dorset and things, and these people worked, and they'd be doing it in the car. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Are you crazy? And I was so against it. And then I tried it. And I was like, oh God, this is so good.
This is what they mean.
And I'd smoked weed. So I'd smoked weed from when I was like 18, but not to a bad extent. I'd smoke and get the munchies and go and eat a load of food. But the first time I did coke, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And that was...
Liked it straight away.
Insane.
Yeah.
And that was... I can't do things by halves. I was I am all in. I need to find myself a dealer. And funnily enough...
24 hours.
Yeah. And then I started smoking out of nowhere. Never smoked really all my life.
Though, isn't it?
And it does. It's a habit and it's something to do. And then you move in different circles, you start going out, you start going into, not just into bars, but you start into private members bars in London, and you start hanging around with people. You think, I'm not seeing these on TV. You're a rock star, you're this. And you think, this is crazy. And then you get to know the owners of these places, and the lock-ins start, and then as soon as they kick out the riff-raff, I'm behind the DJ booth like this, chopping up. And it's just, it becomes a crazy lifestyle.
But also in that, you've started earning money.
Yeah.
So like there's not really, and also you're running your own time. Like I found such a difference when I was working for someone else and working for myself, because you could basically navigate your schedule around your drug taking. Yeah.
And that's what it became, you know. I mean, every night it was there was always somebody in there. There was.
It becomes your normal.
So quickly. Normal. And you know, I used to play a lot of cricket as well. So I've played abroad. I've played in Australia. I went on a pro tour to Barbados, playing over there, and you become friends with a lot of the ex-international players, and they'd all come to London. A few of them were still playing for Middlesex and for Kent and all that kind of, and they'd all come and stay with you. We'd party like crazy, you know, and we'd all end up, and everybody wanted to go to this set place, and because it was where a lot of the famous people hung out. And we just built such a great relationship. There was myself and my ex down there. They were like family. We'd get invited around to the house for Sunday dinners and all this kind of stuff. And it was just a way of life. But it was an expensive way of life. But London is a bubble, as you will know. You know, you work hard and you play hard.
It's quite insane when I think back.
I'll tell you a good story. I can't tell you who it's with, but it's a very famous cricketer. Big glass dinner table.
Sure I can guess.
No, you wouldn't.
Okay.
I don't think you would. So big glass table.
Love a glass table.
It was really nice, and basically we'd lined one big line from there, and we started racing to the middle. And that's how stupid it was.
And it does. It's funny to look back on, right? And I always think, you know, I'm on my page. I do tell funny stories because you can't do 10 years of addiction and some of it not being fun. Like it got dark, but I had some
at the
good times.
They were brilliant. I mean, you thought, at that time you were just living the dream. It was just amazing because doing that amount of drugs and having that amount of fun, there was never a dull moment. And even when there was, which were the days after the come downs, you forget them. Your brain just shuts them out because you then pick back up, you do another line. And
it's just so exciting.
When you was on coke, now knowing about stimulant medication for ADHD, how did coke affect you in comparison to your pals?
Yeah.
So were they chewing the ears off everybody else while you were quite level-headed about things?
No, I was very chatty.
Oh, were you?
But my brain, completely silent.
That's
and
me.
It was
I was so clear.
Heavenly.
Calm, clear.
I didn't need... What the difference was is I would sit with one person and just be like... My friends, they would be like, all over the place. So, like, my brain of what it's like not on cocaine is what they were like on cocaine. Yeah. But what I loved is I love talking to people, and I've always been like that. So, like, the one issue I didn't have was really ever the shame that came with talking openly. So, like, people who are on gear, they'd be like, I've never told anyone this. And I'd be like, okay, I've heard that before. I never had that issue. I could talk about things sober, deep stuff sober. But my brain was just, for the first time ever, I didn't have 20,000 other things in it. And it wasn't just that. I just loved it as a drug. I mean, I connected with it very, very well. You know, and I was never scared of it. That's a terrifying place to be. You know, the tolerance that I built up very quickly, it didn't take me long before I was getting my own. And I always people would always say, you're over ordering. And I'd be like, no, but you don't understand.
No, but at 3 o'clock in the morning when I've got another.
Yeah, and I, you know, was known for that as well, you know, being able to, you know, and I'd be quite funny about it. Like, I kind of be like, well, the people that are left up with me, you know, they'll get the magic bag, you know, the one I pull out of the drawer. But I think I do find it very interesting, ADHD people with cocaine. It's a really interesting topic because everyone I've met who is like us is exactly the same with it. It's just like...
But it's an escape. It allows us to escape reality.
But with that, the come downs are so bad.
But I mean, Coke just used to make me drink even more. I mean, I was a big drinker.
God,
I could drink more than most anyway.
Yeah.
But then, like with Coke, so you can go through days. I've done like 3 days straight, but drinking 3 days straight with Coke.
Same.
Just getting up and going down the King's Road, and then getting up and going down the King's Road, and then ending up the same place. And it's just like, wow.
Yeah, the time thing is terrifying.
You lose all track of time, don't you?
There's none.
You
there is none, and as long as you keep that blind shut, you don't even notice the day turn into night. No. It's wild. So in this Notting Hill period, how long's that lasting?
4 years, 5 years.
And
more.
Like you're just enjoying it at this point.
That was great. I noticed.
At any point, did you think?
No, well, I did pack it all in for. I've always had that ability to stop something when I didn't want to do it, and I could stop smoking. I always found that if I'd done it to the nth degree, I'd just say, "Oh, I've had enough of that." So when I was obviously doing a lot of gear, I'd smoke 20 fags in a day, at least 20 through the night. But then if you're carrying on, it's just like you're chain smoking. You just one after the next. So I remember waking up, and I used to wake up sick as a dog, have the worst hangovers. And this is before, obviously, I knew about diets and things like that to get me to sleep. You'd be there shaking, staring at the ceiling. Thinking,
never win that fight.
No, it's horrendous.
It's the worst.
It is the worst feeling in the world.
It's just the restlessness as well. It's like, why, when I got into this bed when I was sober, was it the comfiest thing in the world? And now I cannot. You're twitching and...
That's horrible. But yeah, it was... it lasted for a long time. Then I knocked it on the head for, I think, a year or so.
Did you have to give up drinking to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
no
go hand
way.
in hand with each other.
Yeah.
And then it creeps back in, and then I moved down to London.
Why did you decide to give it up?
I can't remember at the actual time. I know what I said, it gave me up to a certain extent, which means I'd done it so much that I wasn't getting the fun out of it anymore. And I just thought, well, what's the point? But then, again, not knowing about ADHD, we need something. We need that dopamine coming from somewhere, whatever it might be. We need it. And we need the thrill of the chase, or we need some form of stimulation to keep us going or to keep us sane. And then you try and find replacements for it. You can go down gambling routes, you can go down porn routes, you can go down all these other kind of ways of trying to find some form of stimulation. Shopping. Wasting money on eBay, on everything.
Yeah.
You know, I've luckily managed to knock the shopping on the head, but I used to have junk coming. I mean, lockdown, for instance, Amazon used to be there twice a day. We used to have 10, 12 parcels coming in. It'd just be stuff that I'd be sat there or taking a line. Oh, yeah, I definitely need that. Oh, I need a new fish tank. Oh, I'll get tropical fish. And you're just like, what the hell are you on? And they turn up and you think, and then I remember ordering that.
Yeah, but then you're on the come down, you're like, no, I can't be doing that. Oh, the fish will die, sir. Don't care.
And it's just where your brain goes at times. And it's hard to find. And this is one of the things that I really struggle with now is there's no replacement for it. No. And I'm over 3.5 years sober, and I've still yet to find something that gives me it's not necessarily the buzz that I want, but that feeling of escape or being able to get out your brain a little bit. Because once you go sober, you remove all that from yourself, and your natural instinct is to replace it with something, and your brain will go, right, we're going to eat some food, or we're going to have chocolate, or we're going to have this. And even more recently for me, I've had to give up dairy and gluten. So I'm at the stage now where I'm like, well, what the fuck is the point in living? Because I've given everything up that I actually quite enjoy. Yeah. Which is why I like golf.
Because we can't do anything with balance, that's why.
Exactly.
Because everything is extreme.
There's never a balance.
No. What got you to the point of, I need to be sober then?
So, again, we've come out of lockdown where drinking...
Lockdown was hard for you, wasn't it?
Really, really difficult because it was homeschooling. I don't think anybody should spend that amount of time with your partner. when you're living with them day in, day out, that's the thing why people go to work, because you get a break, but once you get all the pressure of everything, then you've got the homeschooling to do, then you're obviously drinking, then you're in the unknown world, and what's happening with business, because everything it's like the rug got pulled from under everybody.
So you're losing your routine as well.
Massive, and
I don't know about you, but I remember saying earlier, when you drinking became a daily thing in lockdown.
Oh, massive, and it got earlier and earlier.
Yeah.
So it started off, the first summer was amazing.
I think that was everyone's favourite summer of life.
It was brilliant. It was,
it was sunny.
It was lovely. It was we'd just moved to house. It was sat out in the new garden, drinking gin and tonics. We're in a bubble, and it was wonderful. And then obviously it just kept going on and on and on. But then the drink kept going on and on and on. And luckily for me, one of the businesses of mine just flew. It was doing really well because it, funny enough, sold alcohol and things like that. So it was flying, and it just became more and more. So we'd finish homeschooling, then we'd do whatever we're doing. Then I'd start drinking, and it'd start at 3 o'clock, or then it got to 2 o'clock, then it got to 12 o'clock, and I was like, shit, this is getting quite serious. And then I noticed that was causing an issue with my ex at the time, because she was noticing it, and so I was hiding a bottle in the garage, and that's when I knew I had a problem. I didn't deal with it straight away, because obviously you don't. And she'd go to bed at 7 o'clock, and then I was sat up on my own from 7 till 1, 2 in the morning, and it's incredibly lonely. You're on your own. You've got nobody to talk to. You might be FaceTiming a couple of friends, but guess what they're doing? They're sat up, having a beer, doing a line of coke, and talking to each other. So you've got a bit of a social kind of thing, but life became very, very dark very quickly. And then we came out of lockdown, and I noticed that this habit hadn't gone away. And I think I'd had a couple of big blowouts when we were allowed back out.
It's very easy to use lockdown as an excuse for a long time.
Oh, Christ.
Being like, it's lockdown, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been on a 3-day bender, Monday through to Wednesday. Yeah. That's fine, because it's lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. It was just insanity. But it got to a dark place where I was lying in bed in tears. Everybody else was asleep, and I was in a really horrible place. I've never contemplated. I've thought about like suicide and things like that, but not.
Yeah, thoughts of it. I learned that in therapy, is that it's very normal. Yeah. It's when you start planning.
Yeah. And that was never the case. I've never planned to do it. I thought about it. And it was just really dark, and I got to the stage where I was like, I need help. I really need help, and I don't know how to do it. I was very unhappy within the relationship.
So yeah, that's interesting, because you've got to that situation, but the person who you're with isn't someone who you could go to with that and ask for that help from.
No.
So that's very isolating when you're living with that person.
Yeah. Because it wasn't that it was an excuse or anything. They just couldn't see it for what it was. They couldn't, or they didn't want to accept, or they didn't want to help the situation.
Probably angry because they see it as a drink and drug problem, when actually it's a Fran problem.
But there was a lot of, when you're in a toxic relationship and resentment creeps in from both sides, that relationship's dead, in my opinion. There's very few times when you can come through that.
No, because if you don't address the resentment and forgive, you will always be brought back up.
Yeah.
And then it just ends up in a cycle of you did this and she did that.
Yeah. But I thought, for me, I've got to make the change. I've got to do something. And then I just thought, I'm going to go to rehab, and I'll find somewhere to go. And I was like I said, really, I was in tears. I was asking for help, not to anybody, but whether I don't believe really in God or anything like that, but I needed some form of direction, some form of help.
Funny how quickly we pray when we're desperate.
Yeah, well, and that's it. I was really, really desperate. And I remember my mum coming in. She didn't know what kind of situation I was in. She knew I was very unhappy within the relationship, because I have been for probably 5 or 6 years.
Did you sit in that unhappiness because...
I thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, because I think...
For my daughter. Yeah.
Okay, but I think also, I don't know about you, but like the failure thing of like, I would always think like, well, there have been a few good times, and I'm sure if the other person isn't willing to
there was a lot of great times. We had, bear in mind, she was my best friend before we got together. So she knew me warts and all, really. But then I found I felt it was used against me, and she wouldn't deal with her issues herself. She just took them brush them under the carpet, and then or kick the can down the road, whatever analogy you want to use. And then it'd pop back up later down, further on down the line. Whereas I need to deal with something. If something's there, I've got to get my head around it and deal with it. Otherwise, I can't. But that's where the resentment kicked in. So I resented her for that, and she resented me for what I was doing. And it got to the stage where I just said, right, I'm going to have to go to rehab. So I picked up the phone. I think it was a Monday.
Of course.
Yeah, and picked up the phone, and I made the decision that I was going to go sober. So I picked up the phone, I booked in. I was in there on the Wednesday, but I'd gone in sober. So as soon as I'd made that phone call, I'd given up. I remember saying this is going to be my last line. And I think I was on the phone to them when I did a line. Cracking. And then I was in on the Wednesday, and I did 2-week stay in there and came out. I've not touched anything since.
Wow.
From that side,
So did you go into anything after rehab?
No.
God, that's amazing.
So I did have
therapy.
So I had the clinical director. So this was one of the things I learned. Because at this point I was still very closed book, and I wasn't open to group therapy or anything like that. And I just thought, well,
you think you
rehab, I want one-to-one.
Yeah.
I only want to open up to one person.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody else to know my business.
I think when you're paying for something as well, especially if you've been successful and things like that, you have an expectation, because it's kind of like, well, I want to do it my way because I'm the one paying the money to be here.
Yeah. But what you learned, and it took me a day, sort of maybe 2 days to settle in, really. And I had a couple of one-to-one sessions, and this again, didn't know anything about ADHD to this point.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So the algorithm of, it was YouTube at the time, had started firing up things, because I'd obviously started looking at sobriety and how to do, what to do, and all this kind of stuff, and that naturally pushed ADHD things to me from a YouTube algorithm perspective, and I was like, okay, all right, that makes a bit of sense. And then, oh God, yeah, that makes a bit of sense. Holy shit, that really hits home. And you're like, oh my God. And then you start looking back at life thinking, wow, that really ticks a lot of the boxes. So I spoke to the psychiatrist in the rehab centre, and I said, personally, and you probably hear this from loads of people, I don't think I've got an addiction problem. I'm able to stop things. I walked into this place sober. So if my head's behind something, I can stick to it. However, I've been watching a few videos on ADHD. Would you think I've got ADHD? I said, well, I'm an addiction specialist. I'm not an ADHD specialist. Do this test. Come back to me tomorrow. And obviously the first online test came back where you're highly likely to have it. And it was like, and then the penny dropped a little bit. And then I just started.
Because you've really delved into like the learning of it all.
It's hyper-focused with
everything.
Yeah. I had to
know everything about it.
Pretty much, yeah. And to make sense of it myself, I had to understand it, to piece together every part of my life, or every decision or stupid decision that I've made through life. I'm not saying it's an excuse, but I know why I made them decisions. And that to me has given me more peace than anything else.
And it's a lot easier to accept it when you kind of forgive yourself for it. I helped my parents when I first started the business. That's when I think I was quite out of control then, just generally like manic, but like for about 3 years. And my mum was the person who said to me, I was so not interested. I found it very hard to, I thought it as a trend. Everyone's got it. If someone's saying to me, I can't concentrate, I think, neither can I. What's the big deal? Do you know what I mean? Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
The levels that I've realised since going sober of my ADHD is like, I don't get annoyed when people say they have it, but I had a friend to stay 3 days ago, last week, for 3 days. And I noticed her watching me, and she's always said, I think I've got a bit of ADHD. She went, I would never insult you like that again. Like, this is wild, like to live like that. And I'm like, what do you mean? This is just my life. She's like, no. Watching it, I think, for like a long period of time, I think it's exhausting to watch it.
Yeah.
I never wanted it to be my whole personality. And I actually kind of went the other way to you, where I didn't. Other people were telling me, oh, well, that's because you've got ADHD. And I was like, oh, no, it's not. I'm just forgetful, or I'm just who I am.
Yeah.
But a lot of it does make sense. And I do think that people need to be aware of the fact that we're from a generation of screens. So like attention deficit disorder, attention deficit just generally is going to get more and more just because of the escapes that we have through distraction. But the mental side of ADHD, regardless of whether you've got a screen in front of you or not, the emotional side to the, whether you've got it physically or internally, whether you've got both, like me. People don't think it exists, and I can tell you it 100% does. And I still to this day, I struggle to be sympathetic of it, like the symptoms I have of it, because I'm just sort of think, now this is the problem I've had my whole life, is like everyone's got a worse problem than me, and that's what's got me to kind of where I've got to, so I just brush everything under the carpet.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel sorry for people who, like, my ADHD has been a lot better since I don't have structure. Like, it's weird. I know people say that it thrives off routine, but it thrives off my routine, not someone else's version of routine. No. Yeah.
That's why I've been in burnout for a couple of years.
Really?
Yeah. Not like, it's like functional burnout. I've lost all like ambition and drive and motivation. And this is one of the things I used to speak to the therapist about, is like, when's this going to come back? Because before, like I mentioned, being quite creative on coke at night, I'd be able to get stuff done, and my brain would be ticking on a level where I think, oh yeah, that was a great idea. And now it's like it's just completely dead at times. And I just find it like that, to me, is definitely still part of burnout that you're coming through. And I know it's been a lot of, it feels to me like I've given everything up. So you give up your drink, your drugs, your lifestyle, your relationship. You've removed yourself out of all your social kind of outlets just to, you alienate yourself from everything else, and you just to try and fix yourself, basically.
To get used to your natural brain state is like a massive thing.
And that's it. I think, this kind of burnout is, it just takes, it can take 2 months, it can take 2 years, it can take even longer, to be able to find. And I'm still trying to find the elusive balance in life, be it through medication, through stimulant medication, through alternative medication and things like that, to try and find something that helps me function at a capacity that I don't feel like I'm going to have a massive come down or is detrimental to my health. And that's what's pretty tough at the moment.
So if we just go back to getting diagnosed.
Yeah.
So she gave you a test. Was that like a...
It was just an online test. So she was an addiction psychiatrist. So she said, there's nothing I can do to help you with ADHD other than try this test. If it comes back, the best thing I can do is recommend that you go and get an assessment once you've come out of rehab, which is exactly what I did. So whilst I was in rehab, because you get a lot of downtime where you're in your room and, you do all your sessions throughout the day, and then in the downtime you can go and play table tennis, you can do whatever you want, really. It was quite a cool place. I did a lot of walking. But then
what is it about walking?
It's been outside.
That is my absolute, I get dopamine hit from that in a massive way. I really got into it in lockdown, and I find myself, I can go for fucking hours. Yeah. And I'm like...
But it's because you
I'm listening to something,
or your brain's ticking or something.
But then I get annoyed because I've probably come up with most of my ideas and solutions when I'm walking. But then I need to get back home, and I'm not kind of close enough to home, and I need to get going. Then I've done the walk back, and then I'm knackered.
Yeah. No, it's bloody hard again, because you're doing something that you love doing, And then the downside to it is you buggered at the end of it and your brain's had enough. It's like you've not found that balance.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing. But yeah, so she told me, I'd basically done 2 weeks and I'd done a lot of group therapy in there, which were quite eye-opening for me. And like I said, I've always been a closed book. I wanted one-to-one sessions. And I remember kicking off in there, literally saying, well, I'm bloody paying for this, so I want a one-to-one session.
Yeah.
This is not the routine. The routine is this. Come to some group therapists. And I remember being sat there and there was a guy, an American guy that was in there. And, his story was like, he walked in, he was having severe shakes, sick everywhere, massive alcohol come downs and on detox medication. But he'd been there, this is the third or fourth time he'd been there. And this stay that he was there for like, I think it was 6 weeks or 8 weeks. So he'd done a real good stint in that. And he'd come out and it was his story. And I remember him talking about thinking, fucking hell, that really, I can relate to this. And then everybody else pipes up and there was 12, 13 in this group. And you just think, well, shit, I'm not the only one that's going through this. And they talk about relationships because that was one of the big toxic things for me. Talk about there was business people in there, there's professional footballers, and all these kind of things. And you just think, shit, I'm not alone. And that to me was one of the most powerful things I've ever witnessed from a therapy perspective. And it's weird that I've never really carried on doing any form of group therapy. But I did have the clinical director there. He took me on as a private client afterwards.
Okay.
And he was brilliant. A guy called Mike Delaney. And he's wrote a couple of books, but he's ex-addict, he's still supposed to be. I connected with him because there's nothing I said that he's not done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think
that's when everything changed for me, getting a therapist who was in the fellowship. So, had problems, had their own problems with addiction, and then also had ADHD. And like also a therapist that would tell me things like she a lot of therapists won't talk about their own personal life, but she'll give me examples from her own personal life.
You can relate to.
And she'll say, something that happened with my mum, and I like that. And also I know that when I've been talking about things that, maybe I've done in active addiction, that she's probably done them as well. I think it's very important that.
And that's it. I'm great at helping and advising everybody else, but I find it hard to take my own advice a lot of the time because I just have to go through my own process, I suppose.
So when you started doing the therapy, what did you unearth?
I wanted to figure out the whys of, at this point, again, I'd still not been diagnosed. So I then left rehab, came out clean, and I understood a lot more about myself.
Like what?
I just understood that I'm not the only one. I'm not such a bad person. After all, I used to very self-critical about a lot of things.
Addicts, we always think that we're quite different. We always think that we've done the worst things and we've done the most drugs, and so that you haven't.
No,
you're not special.
No, exactly, and that was it. There was people in there that I thought, I was an animal with things, and there were people in there that were telling stories. I just think, fuck, whoa, steady on there.
And they're like, what about you? And you're like, no, you're on your own with that. You take the lead with that.
Yeah, but I learned a hell of a lot from there, but it only reaffirmed certain things to me. As I still find it hard to accept that I'm an addict to something. I love the chase. I love the dopamine. I love that kind of hit. But that could come from anything. It didn't have to come from. It just happened to come from coke and alcohol. I still need to find that kind of hit through something else.
Do you think you need to accept that you may not ever get that level of it?
That's the hardest pill to swallow. No fun again. But that is the reality. You're never going to get that. So the things that I missed the most are going to the pub with the lads. I love them day sessions where we used to...
day drinking.
Day drinking in the pub. But there was a group of local lads where we'd watch the horse racing. So we'd be gambling on the horses. We'd be doing coke in the toilets. We'd be drinking. We'd be playing cards, 3-card brag, 7-card brag, poker, all these kind of things. And there was constant piss take, constant laughs. It was brilliant, I'm never going to get that again.
No.
There's no way, shape or form I can put myself into that situation again. And that pains me because they were some of the most fun times I've had.
Yeah. You loved it.
Yeah.
But the way I try to look at that is that I have got to experience that. Like, at least I have got to experience it. Would I want to take that away and never experience it so that I don't miss it? Don't know. But I know I also know when I play the tape forward how those situations in that part of the moment are the best. They're so fun. They are. Yeah. But I also know where it gets to on the second day.
Or the anxiety.
Yeah.
So,
and then we end up sweating, eyes streaming, noses running. There's the two of you left, like, get some more. Like, that's the bit. I know that if I go back, I don't ever go back to when it was fun and carefree. I go back to where I last left off.
Yeah.
So,
but the hard.
You don't just lose. You're right. You don't just lose the drink. You lose that connection that you have with your friends, regardless of whether it's real or not.
But they're really friends anyway. They were just social kind of animals that were.
But it's okay to know that when you miss that and you.
But what my brain shuts off is the debilitating anxiety, that horrendous feeling that I was dying and having a heart attack the next day. I've been to hospital twice.
Yeah.
I remember being on a business trip I was in France, in Bordeaux, looking to buy some wine, and I was over there with a business partner, and we'd only had a couple of bottles of wine the night before, and we was out to some vineyards and things like that. And I remember driving, thinking, "Fucking, I've got this pain down my arm." I'm like, "Oh shit!" And then it hit me. I was like, "Right." Found the fucking doctor's hospital. Drove to one, walked in, language barrier, could speak a bit of French. I'm like, so they've rung the ambulance, then I've fired off to Bordeaux North Hospital, and they've checked me all out, and I'm proper thinking I'm dying, thinking what I need to say to such and such to pass on to my daughter, all these horrible things. And they basically just said, "You've had a severe panic attack, anxiety attack."
Really?
And he was like, and they were the things that you shut out your brain. You forget them bits. You remember the great things, but you forget the horrendous bits.
That's like when you're in the, I've had times where I've been having like severe heart palpitations on the previous session, okay, and then by the time I've decided that I'm doing another session, I don't even think about it. But my favourite part has always been deciding, like, in my head, the conversation of should I, shouldn't I, giving into it, and then getting the drug, like getting the drug. That was more, gave me a huge dopamine hit than even the first line.
Yeah.
Like getting the drinks, being so excited, getting it all sorted, like getting the fags, getting the booze, sitting down, knowing that the person that you're with is like, and you're both just like, that's the fun part. But it's like, how quick was I to forget how I felt on the last
literally a few hours before.
But it doesn't even cross my mind. Times where I've been when I was really bad, where I've literally given myself one day off in between sessions, and I'm dying. And I know that if I have a drink and a line, straight back.
Yeah, and that's your brain blocks out the negatives, and that's why I suppose the addiction side of it just keeps showing you the good times and all this kind of thing, and that's why people relapse, because that's all they can remember. I mean, I've had a lot of shit times since. And there's times when you just think, fuck this, let's just draw a line, let's just go and have a drink.
Draw a line.
Yeah, draw a line. Full of them today. But you manage to get through, you just get through another day. It's
one day at a time.
Yeah, and you just literally, I don't know how 3.5 years have gone by. And people keep coming up to me, "Are you still not drinking?" I'm like, "Yeah." "How long's it been now?" I'm like, "Over 3.5 years." I'm like, "Fucking hell, that's amazing." I'm like, Is it really?
Yeah. How have you found, like, so you came out of rehab, did you leave your partner?
Not straight away. So I came out of rehab, and I think I then went down the ADHD route and dived in. So I got in touch with clinical partners. Mike put me in touch with an amazing woman called Diane Zakiao, who's absolutely incredible, from an ADHD and neurodiversity kind of therapist, family therapist. She's brilliant, and I've done a lot with her, and we've looked at setting up a different business together with things. Yeah, of course. and she was great. So I was seeing Mike and Diane once a week.
And was your partner accepting of you going to rehab and then you coming back? And
yeah, I think she was very supportive at the time, and when I came out, because it was like that's what she had to do. But then it soon dropped back into the old routine, and now she couldn't blame me for drinking and things like that. She was picking at other things, and that's when the resentment really kicked in, and it just became more and more toxic, the environment, and it got to a boiling point where I just walked out the house and said, I'm not coming back. I always felt quite passive all my life, and people would push me, and then I'd hit breaking point. And if they pushed me that far, that's it. The line's a dot. The line, fucking oh,
on the brain.
Yeah,
I'm like that to the point where like my parents sometimes used to be like, "You're very cutthroat." I'm like, I'm not. But I get pushed so far, and then I will shut it down completely in terms of I won't feel bad, I don't feel a bit, but it takes a lot. And then if you come back and say sorry to me, I'm so forgiving. But then if it goes past the point of like, it's been too many times that I can literally, once I've made the choice to block or ignore or whatever, I'm very content with it.
Yeah. I'm the same, and I know I'm not an angel. I think you can tell from what we've talked about. I've got my issues, definitely.
What would you say? I mean, were you unfaithful when you were? No. I think that's
loyal as anything.
Yeah.
There was a time when obviously the relationship had got to a stage where I felt that there was no love in the relationship, and this was again one of the reasons why I come off social media, because it was too much of a not distraction, like you said. There's a lot of temptation of window shopping.
Yeah, window shopping.
And that was I spotted that and noticed it, and even then, even though I felt like I'd fallen out of love with her, I deleted Facebook, and I just thought, I can't, I don't want to be that person. One, because I didn't want to be that asshole dad to my daughter. She is everything to me, and I didn't want to break that family unit, and I resigned to the fact that I'm going to have to just persevere with this till she gets to an age of 18 or whatever it might be, and then call it quits for the sacrifice of me, just as long. But then you look at it and think, well, the toxicity, the arguments, all that kind of stuff, that's going to have probably a more detrimental effect on her upbringing than what it will by us being separated.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that was a really difficult decision, but then the decision got made very easy for me, because it just got...
When you see things clearly and it makes sense to you, it's really easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember my dad, before he passed, he was like, and I'd only been, I think my daughter would only be a couple of years old at the time, and I remember being at a barbecue, and I was unhappy then. So this was like early-ish days of the relationship kind of thing. And he took me outside and he said, do you realise it's not a life sentence, this? You can, if you're unhappy, don't just... Because he had a similar situation with his first wife.
It's very interesting that he picked up on that with you.
Yeah, and we never really spoke about relationships at all.
No.
But he could obviously see how I changed. I used to be quite a jovial, happy kind of character, and bit by bit it felt like I'd just been gnawed away at, and my kind of personality had gone and changed.
Same.
And that weren't just down to her.
No.
That was down to my own doing as well, of drinking and drugs and things like that, because that has a massive knock-on effect.
But the controlling thing is definitely hard to contend with, especially when you're trying to keep them happy.
You can't keep someone happy who's not happy within themselves, and that's the truth of the matter. I thought I took ownership of my negative sides, and once I'd realised what they were, I grabbed the bull by the horns and thought, right, I'm going to sort myself out, get myself sober.
Then you get resentful of the person
and
not doing the same thing as well, or taking any ownership.
Yeah, and that's it. She just concentrated on what she wanted to do, and that was, for me, I was like, well,
But then you put yourself in a higher level, because you just, it's not a high level, it sounds arrogant, but you just realise that actually, like, when you choose self-discovery and somebody else doesn't, you are just automatically on another level, because you understand yourself more.
Yeah, 100%. I think to go on that, it's not for everybody. And a lot of people will start on it and think, that's too much for me. I like my life as it is. Because it is a complete life change. Your whole life is flipped upside down. Then you add ADHD into the mix, and then I had business failings and things like that, and it felt like everything came at once, and you just think you've hit rock bottom. And then you go deep into the depths of depression with burnout, so you dig a bit deeper, and then you find a new rock bottom, and then you go a bit deeper for good measure, and then you start to come out the other side a little bit, and I think it's a long journey to get to, and I'm still nowhere near where I want to be.
Which is hard for people with ADHD because we quite like a quick fix.
Of course we do. But we can fix everybody else really quickly as well.
I can sit in a room with someone, give them great advice,
yeah,
high or not, and then leave it thinking, I really should take that advice.
Yeah.
Bloody great.
Yeah.
I really should listen to that.
And that's, things with TikTok, I put a lot of things out, and a lot of it is just what's going through my mind. And then I get inundated with messages, and people ask, well, what do you think about this? I'm like, well, actually, I can't offer advice to you because I'm not a professional. All these things I talk about, probably what's gone through my head 10 minutes before I did this video. I've just aired some thoughts, which will then lead on to something else, and then I put something, and it's one of them things. I've found that TikTok's been great self-therapy for me.
Same.
It's allowed me to get things off my chest, probably what is going through my mind, but also that I think things that have gone through my mind in the past that have helped me get to where I am now,
What would you say for you are like the biggest downsides for your ADHD? Are you thinking about business failings and things, is it?
Yeah, I love business. My problem is, I think we touched on whether it was in there and here, we're great at getting to that building stage. So I love taking an idea, getting it to the stage where it's launched live, and then I get bored really, really quickly. And that for me is, if like you mentioned, having a partner that can work with you, that can then take over the reins and then carry on building it from there. Then you go and build something else.
Yeah.
That'd be brilliant. I had a PA working for me and I explained to her, I said, look, I'm terrible at admin. I can't read emails. I'll read a WhatsApp and I'll take a phone call from you. I don't want to answer phone calls I don't know. So you need to take control of all this. You need to open all my posts. You need to tell me which bills need paying when. And I'll do all that, but you take every bit of paperwork away from me. You do all the invoicing or everything, and I'll communicate to you via WhatsApp and phone call. She said, I can do that. That to me changed my life from a business perspective, because it allowed me to just be free to do what I wanted to do. But you can't always have that.
Yeah, because not everyone can afford. I suppose afford a PA.
They're the negative. The downsides are, you can't do certain things. You can't function like normal people can. You can't. Everyone's just like, well, why can't you just reply to that message?
I've got to be in the right.
I can't read it, let alone reply to it. I've read the first 2 words on the opening bit.
I would do that on a session. I'd go through my WhatsApps and be like, right, I can do this now. I'll just start replying to everyone. 4 o'clock in the morning.
They start putting through.
You're up early.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Tired, bushy-tailed.
It's got a really early morning meeting.
Yeah.
Positive sides for you?
What of ADHD?
Don't sound too positive.
No. I think it's hard.
Do you find when you meet another ADHD person, it's like, it's the best thing in the world?
Yeah, of course.
There is nothing better, like the connection and like the ability to talk and not feel like they're looking at you. But they're not. You can interrupt them as much as you like because they're probably going to interrupt you the next day. And like you talk about deep stuff straight away. And I feel, for me, like that's the kind of stuff that I did love when I was seshing. So I like that, but it's given me a whole new realm of social anxiety when I'm around people who drink and take drugs or have not got ADHD.
I don't believe in ADHD. As well. Fucking hell for that.
I don't really know how I deal with that. I haven't had that.
It's still difficult to this day. But yeah, the positives are like connecting with the right like-minded people. That's really good. I love a hyper-focus. I think it's amazing that we can, and it can be any subject.
Yeah.
Something will trigger the thought process, and then all of a sudden you just go deep into that subject. And you need to know everything.
It's fascinating. Everything. Yeah, it is fascinating that. And like, I didn't even know what that was. And then when I learned about it, I was like, that's quite cool.
Yeah.
Like, that is quite good. It's a shame you can't really pick and choose which ones they are.
No, and it's a shame, you can't turn it on like a switch.
Yeah.
Because at times you just want to go, right, I really need to do this. Let's just get your head sorted.
But I need to, like, for me, I have to get myself stressed to do something. Yeah. So like when I had the business, like if I have something on the next day, big client meeting, I know how long it takes me to get that work together, like a concept pack for their house, right? And I'm doing I was doing high-end residential, like working with wealthy clients. I will leave it till the Thursday night, the meeting's on the Saturday, and then I will work until 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, deadlines.
But I'm like frantic to the point where, and then I'll get through the meeting and then I'll be like, I cannot speak to anyone. I need to be in a dark room and I need to just be alone.
Yeah.
Even though I've said a million things in that meeting that I need to follow up on that day, can't do it.
No, and then I'm
bored of that project. Yeah. I need another one.
Exactly, and I think that runs through all of us like Blackpool Rock is that we need deadlines. We need that
pressure.
That pressure to.
But it's my own pressure. It's like if they call me and go, "How are you getting on with the project?"
Not even started.
I don't care. Exactly. It's going great. It's going great. Okay, still on for the meeting on Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, have you got a draft you can send us? No. You're just going to get the full whack all in one go. It'll be great, but it'll be done when I need it to be done. But I feel the pressure for it to be done.
And the thing is, if you're dealing with like neurotypicals, that they can't understand that people, and this is one of the hard.
So when they go, "We've had a week to do it." So no, in your eyes, I've had a week to do it. In my
eyes, it's not even come across. It's not on my priority list yet.
Yeah.
My deadline list is there, and I'll start it. A good 3 hours before this meeting.
Yeah.
And
just so I can really stress myself out.
And then you come at the end of the meeting and like, that was really well done. You must have planned really well done. And you're like,
people think you spent months on it, and you're like, no, just stayed up till 6 in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm going to crash.
Don't expect to hear from me. I'm going to follow up on this meeting.
No. There are a lot of positives to it. I do find that we're quite empathetic people. I do think we've got an ability to read things. I always say I can read people like a book. Wherever I meet them, whoever I meet, it doesn't take long for me to work them out.
When I was growing up, I genuinely thought I was psychic.
I know what you mean. I know exactly
honestly,
what you mean with that.
Like, I also want to search, if I was in a group setting of people maybe that I didn't know as well, I would pick the quietest person and I'd want to kind of
open them up.
Thrive off of things like that. And I'd be able to do it easily. It's very hard, when you're going up to make people understand something like that, when you're growing up, the things that you got to be good at English, maths, get a C in them so that you get into your A-levels, whatever. It's not talked about as a talent or a transferable skill to be able to talk to people or pick up on things and emotions.
Well, the education system, in my opinion, is completely
not
shot.
For me.
No.
It's puts me off having children now.
No. Well, I've got my daughter in the private school, and I still see the same things happening in the school now. It's virtually the same kind of curriculum. Now, the world's changed massively from when we were kids to where it is now, but the curriculum hasn't changed, and they're still trying to teach this kind of...
It's just pigeonholing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going to work. It's the same people with addiction. You can't really pigeonhole it because everyone's trauma is different and everyone's trauma is valid. That's why I know people have however people choose to get sober is up to them, and I think it's great, but with the 12 steps, it's you doing it for you.
Yeah,
there's no one, you're not paying it, you have an expectation of anyone, you've got to turn up, you've got to get through it. And that's just how I managed to get to know myself and work myself out. Regardless of barriers like religion and spirituality, if you take it for what it is, you'll figure that out along the way, or you don't, but you will figure yourself out. They're very clever. It's a very clever working exercise because it's down to you. You have to want to do it.
No, anybody who says that they're giving up something for their missus, their daughter, their bollocks.
Never going to work.
You're going to fail. I'm sorry. You've got to give up for your reasons. That's it.
I think that's important that they don't provide, you said at the start of this, like, you realise when you first gave up drinking Coke, like, it wasn't providing anymore.
Yeah, it didn't give me the fun. It wasn't fun. It takes it once the fun goes out of it. But again, I wasn't doing it in a fun environment because of lockdown. I was doing it on my own a lot,
Isolated user.
Yeah, and that then twists it from a social thing to quite a dependent thing.
Yeah, and the connotations of just like using drugs and drinking on your own, like, aren't great.
Yeah,
the reputation that has, as much as you enjoy it. When you come round from that, you're thinking, look at me. It's not look at us, it's look at me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
So medication.
Yeah.
Thoughts, views, opinions.
So
what have you done then?
Once I got...
What drugs have you done?
Yeah. Legal ones. So once I got diagnosed with combined ADHD, I then went straight to titration.
Right, what is titration? When people were talking about that, is that...
So it's a period of time where you're building up on different levels of... Let's say you start on Concerta. So you'll start on the lowest level, which is whatever, 17 milligrams, 20, whatever it was. And then you build up to find a level that works for you. Okay.
Concerta is non-stimulative.
No, it is. It is stimulant, yeah.
Concerta and Elvance are the...
both stimulants.
Yes.
Yeah. So they will start... So I had a really good GP and a really good psychiatrist I did it through Clinical Partners. And my GP said something that stuck with me a lot, and because I was on antidepressants for anxiety predominantly and low mood, I'd say, so I started off on SSRIs, which were fluoxetine, and then what else did I go on to? Escitalopram and various other things like that. Sertraline was another one. I was taking them for anxiety because I was suffering terribly from anxiety due to drink and drugs. And he said to me when I started taking the titration process, I'm happy to sit here and talk to you and support you with this because I can't see what's going on inside your head. Nobody can. Your psychiatrist can't, I can't, only you can tell us what's happening. So this whole process of titration is trial and error with a lot of false starts. And I thought, that really makes sense to me. He says, so you'll try things, they'll work, they won't work. You'll move up onto the next level. You'll notice other things that don't quite fit with you. And then, we'll try it with a different... So for a 14-month period, I tried the two stimulants with different antidepressants. And then I went on to an SNRI, which went up on a different pathway, which is duloxetine. And then I finally settled on, I think it was Elvance. But one of the things that you have to do is check your blood pressure all the time. And that raised my blood pressure to not a scary level, but a non-sustainable level. So then I stopped, and...
But what was your experience with those?
At the time, I wasn't happy. I had got it in my head that I was going to take the pill off for Limitless, the Bradley Cooper film. I was going to take that pill and my brain was going to work on a different level, which I've always wanted it to work on.
But that's the addict brain as well, thinking that if I take something that's been prescribed, it's just going to click. Yeah.
And it didn't.
No.
And it really didn't. And that really pissed me off because I felt so... I kind of...
Well, it's an expectation and then you just let down.
It completely let down and it wound me up. And it, again, that knocked me for six a little bit because I thought, I'm finally going to have an answer here, or a solution, should I say. And it wasn't. So I came off the medication altogether and I stayed on the duloxetine. And
is that ADHD?
No, it's just, yeah. And then I felt myself just being, that was it. So you don't use your psychiatrist for anything because you've tried everything now. So I felt I was like left in the open, completely exposed. My whole world had been turned upside down. I quit. I'd gone sober. I'd then just come out of my relationship. I'd then quit everything that I knew about my life. And then the prescribed drugs don't work. So I'm like, well, what the hell do I do?
Yeah.
Which is what took me then into a deep dive of looking into what ADHD was, trying to get my head around it and understand it as much as I could so I could make sense of it. And then being in that kind of mindset to try and figure out, well, how am I going to try and fix myself? I couldn't be asked with exercise.
No.
Walking, I've obviously got a dog, so I love walking the dog, but I couldn't.
Yeah, but if you've associated exercise with kind of like a have-to thing, it's very hard. That I was saying, but like I was only ever exercising to get them for a holiday, or try because someone had told me that you get a bit of dopamine from it. I didn't really want to get myself there. I don't like that because if I don't want to go, endorphins. Oh, you get great endorphins. I'm like, well, you can get that from a chocolate bar.
Yeah, pretty much. And then that is the hard thing. You've got to push yourself out. I wouldn't say your comfort zone because you know realistically what you're capable of doing and what you're not capable of doing. And I've done where exercise was part and parcel of life. I've worked in the gym and things like that when I was younger, and it was life.
Oh, I got obsessed with it at one point, but of course, I get bored of it. And then I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, and that's it. You can't return to it after you hate it. So then I looked at various other things, and I've tried everything, from psilocybin, microdosing psilocybin.
So, effects of that? I'm very interested in that.
Okay, so for me, I'm a very visual learner, so I had to learn. It's amazing, you get better education on YouTube and TikTok than you can.
Oh my God, I have learned more about... When I first started my channel, taking L-bands, that was the thing. I wanted to see someone in real time doing it, so I did it myself. And the comments, then what I learned, I went to a psychiatrist. I went private. I went to the psychiatrist. I didn't get told about the food thing. I didn't get told about the fact that it was going to make me feel like I was taking cocaine when I'm a recovering cocaine addict. I didn't get told about the mood. I didn't get told about the dry mouth. I didn't get told that I was going to have a crash off of it. I got told nothing.
And this is the problem.
I didn't get told about titration or whatever that is. Titration. I've just gone on it and I've now at the stage with mine where I've probably been on it for 3 months, 30 milligrams. And the thing I'm noticing now is that I only get sort of like...
It wears after that.
Well, I wake up so groggy still, and I feel like I have to lie in bed and then I take it, and then 2 hours later I'm feeling my normal self. I don't crash off of it, but it's that morning period I hate. I'm not up and out. And now I feel like I'm only ever sort of me when after I've taken it, and then I'm like, do I need to run a higher dose of it? And I hate the fact that I'm dependent on something that gets me to just feeling like me when I can feel like it's so confusing.
But it is, but that's how your mind. You've just explained that whole process of what your mind's doing, and that your mind will be doing that 24/7 because you're then in your head thinking, well, am I now reliant on a prescription drug? Do I need to go up a level?
Should I take more than one?
Yeah, and that's the thing. And in theory, yes, you should. You should try. For me, I had to try all these different levels to figure out what works. And that's what the GP said. It's trial and error. You'll get to... I remember taking 50, 60 milligram of one of them, and I was like that, jittery all the time. I was like, no, that's not good for me. That was a shit day. I'm coming straight back down on that. But you have to do that to know. So I went down looking at alternative things from... so psilocybin was something that I picked up on watching... Again, YouTube clips and TikTok clips and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, right, okay, I need to get my head around this. Where do I get hold of this from? Okay, I don't want to be going to a dealer again. I don't want that kind of mentality. So I figured out how to grow them. So I then bought a kit, obviously.
So hyper-focus on shroom growing.
Yeah, and, within no time, I'd bought the spores, I'd grown them, I'd dried them, and then I just started trying them. And you start on such a low... if you feel high, you've taken too much. Okay, so the closest I got, I was never high, but I remember looking at the lights and seeing a few rainbows around them, and I thought, okay, well that's your highest dose you're taking. So I dropped down and I'd mix it in my morning shake or in my tea, whatever it might be. And it gives you a very kind of...
mellow.
Yeah, that's a great word for it. A very gentle lift on your kind of mental way of looking at things.
But I like
not a high.
I like not a high, but that.
Just a lift.
You know, with ADHD, you get like the zoomies where you suddenly have to be like, wee! Like I kind of don't want to lose that. So I feel like with psilocybin, that would do that.
It'll give you. It allows your brain just to. It ticks on a little bit better.
Yeah.
You know, I can't. It's hard to explain because it's not like when you come up on on stimulant or pills, anything. Yeah. You drop MDMA. It hits you, and you're like, whoa, shit.
Party time.
Everything's like awesome. But with this, it's just a nice little lift. You just feel like you feel a little bit happier in yourself, a bit more confident about things, and you feel a bit more warm to the world, you know, and it's quite a nice feeling. But then you've got to remember that you've got to take it every morning, and then you think, well, for me, it kind of wore off a little bit, and I don't want to push any further because I don't want to, again, you don't want to become too dependent on something. So I've then played around with that. Then I came off it for a long time, and then I tried. You can get I can't remember what it's called now.
MDMA.
Something I do want to try.
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested in it. I do think you obviously have to be careful, but I was never addicted to anything other than coke and alcohol. I've tried everything else, but nothing. You know, I think when you trust yourself again, you know. But MDMA, it's an interesting one.
There's over in Australia, they've just released it to help with people with trauma and deep depression for microdosing MDMA, and I think it's got huge benefits.
I've done some research into it, and it looks like the next sort of
100%.
But a lot of these, I mean, they've got ketamine therapy now for the place where I got diagnosed, shut down, where I first got diagnosed for ADHD. They had ketamine therapy there.
The medical marijuana, medical weed.
Medicinal weed is massive for people with ADHD.
And a lot of people, you know, say that, is it, what do they call it, California sober?
California sober, yeah.
Which I didn't know was a thing, but, you know.
Have you tried medicinal weed? No. Again, it's that not being able to, I don't know, I feel like it would just chill me out, and I don't know if I want to be chilled out.
It's one of them, I think I'll definitely try it in some. I'm the same as you. I don't want to be chilled out. No. I want the other. I want the fully functioning brain again. You know, I've tried supplements, and I've gone through all the bloody supplements.
Oh my god, the chaga, the turkey tail, the lion's mane. Done it all.
Yeah, and I just think, no, I need something.
If it's because it's not coke.
Yeah, I agree. But I do think that there's merit in psilocybin, and there's things that I would like to do as well, which is like ayahuasca.
Yes, let's do a trip.
Yeah, and I want to go down that spiritual kind of route, and now I'm 3.5 years in, whether it might be 4 years, 5 years when I do it, I think there will be a stage where I will try that, because I want to dig a little bit deeper.
I think it's like, with us, we do always, we're not really very afraid of trying things if they're going to help, you know. It's funny how, like, when we, like, put things in a spa-like setting, they very much become...
The thing, they become okay because, you're on self-discovery mode.
Come here and discover yourself with some MDMA in a green shake.
Yeah, but,
with a cucumber and vegetables and mint in it.
Not dabbing it or
bombing it.
Yeah, bombing it.
Stick it in a Rizzler.
Tasted it.
I was always that person where, you'd be at the afters and they'd be like, I've only got Mandy left. I'd be like, what's the issue?
I had that conversation with my hand after snorting. You know the big foam hands that you get?
Yeah, what is that?
And I was like, hello!
Yeah, I had that after ketamine at a festival, and I was walking around going, I've got trees for hands! I was like, just look at them! Look at them!
Good times.
There was one guy, it's fucking brilliant, right? So, he wasn't even part of my group, but obviously you've got all the tents at the festivals, and we were going back to have a break, probably just to sniff lines and take drugs. We were going back to our tent, and he was doing that very ketamine sort of spacey walky thing. He just kept climbing up the tent. So my friend was like, "You're right, mate." He was like, "So many big mountains to climb here, so good. And my friend like played into it, and he was like, yeah, he was like, oh, God, how many have you done so far? I was like, this is my 10th. Anyway, it's like crawling. But he's doing it really slowly. Yeah. He's like, oh, long way down that. Anyway, the people come out of their tent, and he's like, and they were like, mate, this is our tent. He was like, this is my mountain. This is not your tent.
It's amazing what the mind could do.
Yeah. What do they say that you can access?
We had 10% of our minds.
10%.
Yeah, something like that. Can you imagine the rest of it all? But that's what I honestly believe. Things like psilocybin, MDMA, ayahuasca, that's what I do think happens. It accesses more of the brain. I don't know if that's a fact or not, but
does ayahuasca, you do it, you basically, you see yourself, I think, in a spiritual sense. You relive your life, and you I think it's like people who have got deep trauma, they didn't have to access it, or that's my understanding of it so far.
Pretty
But then
much.
what, you come out of it and you're like, oh, access my trauma, met the devil, happy to carry on my life.
But a lot of people then take that and are able to
be at peace,
to accept it and be at peace, and put it, once you can piece together parts of your life, like for me, what I have done during sobriety and learning about ADHD, your anxiety goes because you feel comfortable and you've accepted that the decisions you made were the best decisions at that time, and you've moved on, and they're now in the past. You've drawn, I don't say it again, a line under them, you put them in the past, and you can move on, so you don't become anxious about it. Because with ADHD, we can relive a conversation, and anxiety can come up on us from 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then you think, why the fuck did I say that? And it's
but also create scenarios that are just maybe non-existent.
Yeah.
But I can read someone's mood over a text, or I think I can, but I usually can.
Yeah.
And I think they're annoyed with me. Or something's going on with that person, and I know it.
Yeah.
Did you ever get tempted to abuse psilocybin?
No, there's times when I thought
it'd be nice to get high.
Not high. It'd be nice to go to that deep like ayahuasca stage, where I'd take a macrodose and really go deep. However, I was doing it on my own, and I think if I did it in a proper environment, then I'd be willing to do it.
Yeah.
Just to see. I'm quite curious about what else there is out there. That's something that I do want to get my head around, and I always have been. And I suppose when you're on MDMA, you become very curious about everything. However, I'd like to do that in a proper kind of setup where I think I can justify that it's okay.
Myself. Yeah. It's also though it's because we've got that attachment to doing drugs on our own that weren't healthy for us.
Yeah.
I think having ADHD, like we're quite susceptible to spirituality because we do feel like we've got something extra than other people, like 100%. With this connection to people and how we, like how I think about the world is always quite different to other people. So I think there's always that interest of, are we just sort of, floating rock and what else is out there?
And I've always thought I'm here for a reason.
Yeah.
And I've yet to find that. Maybe we have a path to go through. Maybe we have to go through the shit that we've had to go through to come out the other side to be able to do what we're doing, And so I always want answers, desperate for answers, really. And, finding what else is out there or a different understanding on life, well, yeah, I'd be fool not to look at it as long as it doesn't negatively impact my life like drinking and coke did.
Did it ever cross your mind when you started experimenting with psilocybin that you'd broken your sobriety?
No, for some reason.
I'm the same, because as long as it's not alcohol or coke, I'm sober.
Yeah, I was on a self-fixing kind of mentality where I needed to find a solution for me, which I'm still yet to do. So I've actually started I did 7 days back on my ADHD meds.
I saw you on your TikTok.
Which they've worked so much better.
Can I say, when you were saying that video, right, when it was the first day, I was like, you were quite like, and I thought, yeah, you can tell.
It's like my brain had turned on.
Yeah.
And I could only liken it to like films when they pull a light switch like that, and it's like a gold mine, and then the lights go.
Yeah.
It felt like this in my brain. I was like, holy shit, this is how it feels to be normal again.
Yeah.
But then I did 7 days on. I did 3 days off, and I massively dropped. And it felt
because I take mine every day.
Well, I want to take him ad hoc, but I do think there's a balance between that potentially and microdosing as well.
At the same time, yeah.
But I will try it within the coming weeks.
So where are you at the moment?
So I've took a ADHD tab this morning, so I've done 3 days off, and then I'll probably do 3 days on with it and see how I get on.
Do you mind me asking what your dose is?
Concerted 36 milligram.
I thought you'd be more than that.
I've got more. I've still got all my tablets left for titration, so no, and it's worked. But what was weird, after like the 6th, 7th day, I felt it proper wearing off pretty quick, which means you need to move up to the next level in titration. And I've reached out to one of the psychiatrists on TikTok about doing a different, not an assessment, but
like a trial.
Medical review, so they can prescribe it again. Because all I've got is what medication was left over from titration, which is quite a bit still. But it's to have it on an ad hoc basis, but actually to speak to somebody about what else is out there, what works, rather than me just trying to do it on a bit of a whim and learning what I can from social media, is to actually speak to somebody, a professional about it.
Guinea pigging yourself.
But I'm happy to do it because
you can't really take it from another person, because that's the other thing. It's like not every ADHD person is the same either.
No, and it reacts completely different with everybody else.
Just every brain is different. This is the whole thing about trying to pigeonhole all of this stuff. It's like weight loss and things like that. It's just I could go on a diet, you could go on a diet. I could lose this, you could lose nothing. Everyone's different.
No, there's no one size fits all for all of it, and that's the hardest thing for people to deal with as well, because it's so frustrating seeing somebody on social media having that life-changing moment when they have the medication. You think, you bastard, I didn't get that.
I hated that though. Like, I didn't get when all the stuff I was saying was I've taken ADHD medication, my brain's gone quiet. I haven't had that once. Like, I would say the internal jargon of like self-hatred, for sure. That's a lovely change.
Yeah.
Not to just be critical of myself all day, every day.
Yeah.
But I'm still like, I don't know if I want that. Lots of people's biggest fear is that they won't be themselves if they start medication.
Lose their personality and things like that. Check it out.
I kind of had the same opinion on it. But it's the same with anything. If you don't try, you're not going to know.
And that's the thing. You've got to. Yeah, it is trial and error, but it's not for everybody, and it's your own personal journey with it all. And no matter what anybody else tells you, you've just got to figure your own stuff out. And psychiatrists don't know all the answers. That's the one thing I've learned.
You know yourself better than anyone else, really, especially if you've got to a place where you've kind of got far enough down on a self-discovery level. Yeah. You must trust yourself, I think.
Yeah.
It's hard, I think, for both of us being on social media. Obviously my page is sobriety, and I've always said I'll remain abstinent for a year completely of anything.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid of trying psilocybin or MDMA. And who's to say that if I went to a festival, would I do some mushroom chocolate? I don't know. Yeah, if I feel like I can. I've never abused that.
Yeah.
I think we have to change this word sobriety. I think it's all got to be, if you're sober from the things that have brought you to your knees and destroyed your life.
Yeah.
If you don't think you can take something without doing it in excess, for sure. Like, let's get that eradicated. But
we all started doing coke, not thinking that we're going to get to the point of excess with it.
But that's the other thing, isn't it?
Yeah, so you've got to be very self-aware of when it's what you're chasing. If you're chasing answers, or you're chasing the thrill, or you're chasing the betterment of your life.
Because what's to say? Like, you keep saying, I want to get to this place. What about you being just you without anything?
I don't know who that person is anymore. That's the thing. You know, that's one of the things that's coming to me slowly is who am I? You know, I'm only starting to find out who or find me again if I've ever known that person in the first place. You know, because you are a completely different person when you've removed everything and you've removed yourself out of all that social kind of environment. You're a completely different person to where you've ever been.
Yeah, and not feeling the need to be around people. Like it's, and then sometimes I'm like, God, have I alienated myself?
And that goes through my mind all the time.
Yeah.
Have I gone too far with it?
Yeah.
You know, because I honestly feel like I've taken all the fun out of my life. You know, and that's really difficult to come to terms with because you think, well, what is the point?
Are you happy with it?
That's a great question. I don't really know the answer to. I'm proud of the fact that I've got through the darkness, but I'm still not through the actual dark. I've got through the darkness of not being dependent, but going and using and drinking and taking coke and getting into them states. I'm really proud that I've come through that, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be now. You know, I think there's a long way for me to go for where I see myself and what I want to be doing.
What is sort of like your end goal then for life, for the future?
I'd love to find somebody, you know, I'd love to be in a relationship where I'm with somebody where it's a loving, kind of happy relationship, you know, where we're supporting each other. You know, we've got each other's back. Obviously got to get businesses back in working, being successful, doing the things that I want to do on my time. You know, spending all the time with my daughter, because I do. She goes riding virtually every day, and it's me that's taking her to the stables. I love those kind of things, you know, in life. But I'd also like to find that bit of happiness wherever it'll come from. And I'm yet to know what that is yet.
Do you think having ADHD, that it's better for us to be with a yin and a yang than a yang and a yang?
I've not been with another ADHD, so I don't know from a relationship perspective. However, I think that's got to be a win-win kind of situation, because as long as they're understanding, you can help each other out a lot. It is hard. I don't know, and I don't think,
because I've always gone for chaos. Like people, I would say you're quite similar to me. It was hard because everyone I've been with was
that's because of the circle,
drinking drugs.
Yeah.
But I think for some of us, it's like being okay with someone that maybe we would class as boring, but actually it's a very good combination for us to have someone who's, I don't know, balances us out. But then,
oh God, we need excitement in lives.
Yeah,
we need
spontaneity. And only someone to be like, right, we're going to go camping this weekend. Let's go.
Yeah, but they've also got to stimulate.
But then if I'm like, I've got burnout, I need to stay in bed all weekend, then be like, okay,
and not judge you.
It's a lot, isn't it?
But you've also got to understand what your triggers are. You've got to understand what your needs are. So from a relationship perspective, you've got emotional needs, you've got sexual needs, you've got all this kind of stuff that you need to get across to that partner that they've got to understand. And you've both got to be on the same page. Because if you don't, again, you're going to...
resentment.
And that's it. As soon as that creeps in, you're fucked. Well and truly. And I believe that. And then people stay in the relationships for the wrong reasons. And that's, again, that's difficult to deal with and come to terms with.
So, final question.
Go on then.
Are you happier sober?
Yeah, I'd say definitely I am. In the fact that I like where I am, or I like where I'm working towards now. I've had some great times, like, you know, times that you just couldn't imagine.
Times that you could not do without drugs and alcohol. Like, they wouldn't have been the same without drugs and alcohol.
Just
euphoric.
Insane. Just way, I mean, I'll be driving back, and because we've been talking about certain things, I'll be laughing to myself in the car about memories, and you just think...
Which there's, I don't know, 20. So, like, what is one of your funniest stories when you're in active addiction? Or, like, scary, funny, one, like, prominent one? Or like, I don't know.
No. So it was the negative sides of doing coke was the paranoia for me. So I used to live in Holland Park in London, and it was a news house. I had this glass roof terrace. And once it'd gone through, like, let's say we've been up 24 hours or something, and curtains have been shut.
Absolutely.
And we've just done so much coke, and we're still going. And we used to play a lot of darts, had a darts board, and we'd be playing and playing, but then the paranoia would kick in. So I'd be at the curtain looking for the police coming down the road. And like, everyone's looking at you, all right? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And in London, you've got the police helicopter flying over all the time. Well, I thought they were coming after me all the time. And I was like, I can't deal with this. This is fucking horrendous. So I used to like try and black it out and do all these kind of things, put towels over it. You just think, in reality, what the hell is going on?
I always think back in those situations and I think, imagine a sober person watching them.
You just think absolutely bonkers.
The amount of times we're sitting there playing cards, like, did you lock the door? No, did you lock the door? I think you did. Did you? I don't know. Go run downstairs, come back up. Did you lock that? Did I go down just have a wee or did I lock the door? Go.
So this was at a friend's house, and he was quite a wealthy chap in London, had a nice Ferrari, and he said, this is so bad. So we'd all gone to this, I think we were going somewhere, Cambridgeshire, I can't remember, we were playing golf or doing something, and he got to 6 a.m, and he parked his car up, and he says, I put a gram.
Classic.
I put a gram in the car somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I've gone and set apart this Ferrari at 6 a.m. with a knife, digging out his centre console, I've done about 3 grams, 4 grams worth of damage to try and get this 1 gram of coke.
And was it in there?
No. It was. There was something that looked like a little baggie in there, but it wasn't. And I couldn't get to it. It might have been, but I could never get to it. And the next morning, because he got off and went off to work, he rung me out, what the fuck have you done to my car? And I'm like, oh shit, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Send me the bill. Horrendous.
I've been through more bins than I can imagine. Like, terrible, it's just hideous, with no care about my hands or anything. Just, I know it's in there. I know it's in there. And then you find one that's been in there, and you lick that, and you think, oh my god, I'm disgusting, but I don't care. Yeah. It's the desperation.
So I don't miss that.
See, I do miss that.
They are fun. It's all right to look back on it and laugh. But,
those are the things that do just give me like that level of like real desperation of like not being able to let it go.
No. And that was it. It was like a
madness.
Crazy.
I'm going to put all of your socials, if you like, in the show notes. But for people who are listening, you are at
Head Nooks.
NOOKS.
HEADNOOKS.
Guys, you've got to check them out because it is really informative and very interesting. I've learned loads. Thank you so much for coming down.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being a Class A person.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Nice!